They say omegas in heat leave traces everywhere, scent trails that drive alphas mad with need. But Senna had learned to move like smoke through water, carrying the most dangerous secret an unmated omega could possess: the heir of the very alpha general who hunted her kind. 4 months. That's how long she'd been running, her body changing in ways that had nothing to do with her omega nature, and everything to do with that single night when the world turned upside down. Now she stood at the edge of Ironhold Fortress, the last free settlement before the Blood Moon territory where General Kairos Draven ruled with an iron fist. The suppressants had stopped working weeks ago. Not because they were weak, but because pregnancy hormones overrode everything else, making her scent unpredictable, sometimes flooding, sometimes vanishing entirely. A biological impossibility that kept her alive. Most alphas couldn't track what constantly changed. She pressed her palm against her still flat stomach, hidden beneath layers of beta-scented clothes she'd stolen from a merchant's cart. The morning sickness had finally passed, replaced by something worse: the occasional flutter of movement that reminded her she wasn't just hiding herself anymore. Papers? The settlement guard barked, barely looking up. Just another beta checking another traveler. The forgeries had cost her everything: her mother's ring, her father's watch, the last connections to a life before she became prey. Merchant class, heading to the mountain villages, she murmured, keeping her voice steady, pitched in the neutral tone betas used. The guard stamped her documents without question. After all, who would suspect a rogue omega would walk willingly toward the den of the most ruthless alpha general in the territories? But Senna knew what others didn't. Kairos's patrols followed patterns, swept in predictable arcs. The safest place to hide from a predator was in the blind spot directly behind them. Let his soldiers chase ghosts at the borders, while she slipped through the heart of his territory. The irony burned her throat like bile. The father of her unborn child, leading the hunt for rogues like her. Never knowing his own heir grew beneath her racing heart. She'd heard the reports General Draven had become obsessed with finding one particular omega who'd escaped his breeding facilities 4 months ago. The timeline wasn't a coincidence. Inside Ironhold's market square, she blended with crowds of betas and the few registered omegas who wore their compliance collars like badges of surrender. Some looked at her with envy, mistaking her freedom for beta birth. If only they knew she'd trade anything to truly be beta, to be invisible, to not wake up each night drowning in dreams of iron-gray eyes and a voice that commanded armies. The baby moved again, stronger this time, and Senna stumbled. A vendor reached out to steady her, and for one terrifying moment, his nostrils flared. But then a wind came, carrying the smoke from forges and the rot from fishmongers, and her scent scattered, like her hopes there one moment, gone the next. She had to keep moving. Always moving, because standing still meant death, or worse, returning to him. To the Alpha General who didn't even remember her face from that night he'd claimed her in the chaos of a raid, thinking she was just another omega to be processed. Except she hadn't been processed. She'd run. And now she carried his heir while he hunted her across every territory, never knowing he pursued his own bloodline. The memory surfaced every time she closed her eyes, as vivid as the bruises that had long since faded but never truly healed. 4 months ago, before her world collapsed, before she became something hunted rather than someone living, she'd been working at the Haven Sanctuary, one of the last autonomous Omega refuges in the neutral zones. Not quite illegal, but barely tolerated, a place where unclaimed Omegas learned trades, lived freely, pretended they could be more than breeding stock for the territory wars that had raged for 3 generations. Senna had been a healer there, using her grandmother's knowledge of herbs to help other Omegas through their heats without alphas, to heal the broken ones who escaped the breeding facilities, to give dignity to those the world deemed property. 23 years old, and she'd never known an alpha's touch, never wanted to, had successfully hidden through 7 heats, using the sanctuary's protection. Then came the night the protection failed. By order of the Continental Council, this sanctuary is hereby dissolved for harboring rogue elements. The proclamation had echoed across their small compound at midnight. General Kairos Draven himself had led the raid, unusual for someone of his rank, but the Continental Council wanted to make an example. No more sanctuaries, no more autonomous Omegas. Submit or be branded rogue. She'd watched from the medical building as soldiers corralled her sisters, friends, mentors. Watched the sanctuary's elderly director, Mora, try to negotiate, only to be backhanded into silence. The general had stood at the center of it all, massive even among alphas, his presence making every Omega in proximity whimper or bare their necks involuntarily. Except Senna. Maybe it was the adrenaline, maybe the rage, but she'd felt nothing but burning defiance. Even from across the courtyard, even in darkness, she'd seen his head turn, tracking something, tracking her. She'd run then, but the sanctuary was surrounded. Trapped in the administrative building, she'd tried to burn the records, names, and locations of every Omega who'd passed through their doors. The smoke had given her away. He'd found her in the archives, cornered between burning papers and a window too high to reach. She'd expected violence, arrest, immediate execution for destroying council property. Instead, he'd stood perfectly still, his iron-gray eyes dilating to black, as her heat scent hit him, the suppressants failing under extreme stress, her body betraying her at the worst possible moment. "You're not registered," he'd said, voice rough as gravel, fighting visible control. "I'd rather die than be branded like cattle." She'd snarled back, the heat fever making her reckless. Something had shifted in his expression then. "The building's burning. You can come with me, or stay and burn with it." "Then I burn." He'd moved faster than her heat-addled mind could track. One moment she stood defiant. The next she was pressed against cold stone, his presence overwhelming every sense. Not violent, but inevitable, like gravity itself had turned against her. "So much fight," he'd murmured, almost to himself. "They usually just submit." The smoke had grown thicker. Flames closer. In her heat delirium, she'd made a desperate choice: seduce him, distract him, find a way to escape later. But when she'd kissed him, something unexpected happened. He'd groaned like he'd been shot, like she'd broken something inside him. What followed wasn't the brutal claiming she'd expected. It was desperate, almost tender, wrong in every way. An Alpha General claiming a rogue Omega in a burning building while his soldiers secured the perimeter. He'd whispered things that made no sense: apologies, promises, her name though she'd never told him. When dawn broke and her heat faded, she'd woken alone in a medical tent with processing papers beside her. Classification: rogue. Status: to be transported to breeding facility, 7. Assigned to general pool. She'd run before the transport arrived, but not before she'd seen him from across the camp. He'd been addressing his troops, no recognition in his eyes when they'd briefly met hers. Like that night had been erased, like she'd been just another Omega processed in a raid. Except she'd taken something with her when she ran. His air, growing beneath her heart. The one thing that could destroy them both if discovered. The marketplace erupted in chaos without warning. Vendors abandoned their stalls, betas dropped to their knees, and the few collared Omegas present went completely still that learned freeze response when apex predators arrived. Senna felt him before she saw him, a presence that made her bones ache and her unborn child stir restlessly. General Kairos Draven rode into Ironhold Square on a massive black destrier, his midnight blue military coat bearing the marks of every territory he'd conquered. Behind him, a full battalion of his Ghost Wolves elite soldiers who'd earned their name by moving through battlefields like death itself. She should run. Every instinct screamed it, but running now would draw attention, and the square was surrounded. So she did what every other beta did, dropped her gaze, went still, became furniture. Citizens of Ironhold, his voice carried across the square without shouting, that particular alpha timbre that commanded attention at a biological level. "We seek information about a rogue Omega. Female, approximately 23 years, last seen 4 months ago." Her heart hammered so hard she feared he'd hear it. Beside her, an elderly beta woman trembled. Everyone knew what happened to settlements that harbored rogues reduced to ash. Populations redistributed to the breeding facilities or labor camps. "This Omega is particularly dangerous," Kairos continued, dismounting with predatory grace. "She carries stolen property of significant value to the Continental Council." Stolen property. If only he knew what she'd truly stolen from him. The general began walking through the crowd, his soldiers fanning out to block exits. Each step deliberate, measured. He was scenting the air, she realized with cold horror. But the market's chaos worked in her favor: fish, smoke, fierce sweat from dozens of terrified citizens. He stopped 3 stalls away from her, interrogating a merchant about recent travelers. Senna forced herself to breathe normally, to think beta thoughts, boring beta thoughts. Her child chose that moment to move, a sharp flutter that made her bite her tongue. "You?" Kairos's voice cut through her concentration. But he wasn't looking at her, he'd grabbed a young man who'd tried to edge toward an alley. The boy's scent spiked with terror. and beneath it, something else. Omega. Suppressants don't hide everything, the general said coldly. Unregistered? The boy couldn't have been more than 16. He shook his head frantically, pointing toward a collar around his neck. But Senna could see what Kairos couldn't. From his angle, the collar was fake, painted metal instead of true registration steel. General Draven, one of his lieutenants called. The sanctuary records you requested. Kairos dropped the boy, who scrambled away as the general took the offered tablet. Senna watched his jaw clench as he read. Whatever was, in those partially burned records from her sanctuary, it affected him. Double the patrols, he ordered. She's heading north, trying to reach the unclaimed territories. His certainty was absolute. Wrong, but absolute. He turned to address the crowd again, and their eyes met across the square. The world stopped. Those iron-gray eyes that haunted her dreams bore into hers, and for one terrible moment, she thought he knew. Her scent spiked involuntarily, not Omega, not Beta, but something else. Something unique to pregnancy that shouldn't exist in an unmated, unclaimed woman. His brow furrowed, nostrils flaring. He took a step toward her. General? A messenger rode in hard, horse lathered with sweat. Attack on the eastern checkpoint. 3 dead. Omega escape route confirmed. Kairos's attention snapped away. When? An hour ago, sir. He looked back toward where Senna stood, but she'd already melted deeper into the crowd, using the distraction. She felt his gaze seeking her, hunting for whatever had caught his attention. Mount up, he commanded his soldiers. We ride east. He paused at his horse, looking back one more time at the crowd. Citizens of Ironhold, remember, harboring a rogue means death, but information leading to capture. He let the promise of reward hang in the air. They thundered out of the square, leaving dust and terror in their wake. Senna stayed frozen until the last hoofbeat faded, then quietly vomited behind a merchant stall. Pregnancy and fear made a violent combination. You all right, dear? The elderly Beta woman from before offered her water. Just the excitement, Senna managed, accepting the kindness. Terrible times, the woman murmured. That poor Omega he's hunting must be terrified. 4 months he's been searching. Never seen the general so obsessed. If only she knew she was standing next to the object of that obsession. Senna should have left Ironhold immediately after Kairos's departure. Should have, but couldn't. The stress of the near encounter had triggered something cramping, spotting, her body threatening to reject the pregnancy it had barely accepted. She needed herbs, rest, stability, everything a rogue couldn't afford. She found refuge in the settlement's poorest district where questions cost extra and nobody could afford curiosity. A boarding house that reeked of mold and desperation, run by a Beta woman who'd lost her left eye to an Alpha's rage, and her right to care about anything beyond payment in advance. For 3 days, Senna fought to keep her child. 3 days of herbs that made her vomit. Of lying still while her body warred with itself. Of whispering promises to the life inside her that she wasn't sure she could keep. On the 4th day, when the cramping finally stopped and she thought she might survive this, the world shifted again. All citizens to report to the square for processing, the announcement rang through the streets. By order of General Draven, compliance is mandatory. He'd come back. The eastern checkpoint had been a false trail, and he'd returned to Ironhold with methodical fury. Senna watched from her window as soldiers went door to door, dragging people from their homes. Not violently, but implacably. Every citizen would be catalogued, scented, recorded. She couldn't run the streets swarmed with ghost wolves. Couldn't hide they were checking every building. Her only option was to blend, to trust that her confused scent would pass for Beta among hundreds of others. The square had been transformed into a processing center. Tables with military scribes, medics drawing blood, soldiers creating ordered lines from chaos. And at the center, overseeing it all, stood Kairos Draven. He'd removed his military coat despite the cold, shirt sleeves rolled up, personally checking the work of his subordinates. Women, 16 to 30, line 3. A soldier directed her. The line that would pass directly by the general. As she waited, Senna noticed something odd. Kairos kept touching his chest, right over his heart. Like something pained him. His second in command, a female alpha named Rask, seemed concerned. Sir? Perhaps you should rest. You've been running on no sleep for... I'm fine, He cut her off, but his voice carried exhaustion's edge. The line moved with military efficiency. Each woman stated their name, occupation, showed their papers, submitted to a cursory scent check by a beta medic. Simple, routine, survivable, until the woman 3 ahead of Senna broke down crying. An Omega, collar real but spirit broken, begging not to be sent back to her assigned Alpha. The disruption created chaos, guards moving to contain her, and in that chaos, Senna's careful control slipped. Her scent spiked not with fear, but with protective rage. An Omega instinct to defend another Omega in distress. For just a moment, her true nature blazed through her suppressants and beta clothes like sun through clouds. Kairos's head snapped up. Those gray eyes, finding her instantly across the crowd. Recognition flickered not of her face, but something else. He started toward her, moving through the crowd like it was water. Senna did the only thing she could. She fainted, or pretended to, dropping carefully to avoid her stomach, letting her body go limp. The beta woman behind her cried out, catching her, and suddenly she was surrounded by concerned citizens. Give her air. She's pregnant, can't you see? Someone get water. That word pregnant rippled through the crowd. She felt more than saw Kairos stop his approach, close enough now that she could smell him. Wood smoke and winter steel, alpha pheromones that made her Omega instinct scream to submit even while unconscious. Sir. The medic who'd been doing scent checks knelt beside her. Beta female, appears to be with child. Should I? Check her thoroughly. Kairos ordered, his voice strange, tight. The medic's hands were clinical, professional, checking her pulse, her temperature. When they rested on her stomach, assessing the pregnancy, Senna fought not to react. 4 months along, barely showing, but unmistakably real. Healthy pregnancy, General. About 4 months. Father's scent is. The medic frowned, confused. I can't determine paternity scent, it's masked somehow. Masked? Kairos repeated slowly. That's not possible. Perhaps the father was a beta with unusual pheromones. Or. The medic trailed off at the general's expression. Kairos knelt suddenly, too close, his presence overwhelming. Senna kept her breathing deep and even, playing unconscious while her heart raced. His hand hovered over her stomach, not touching but close enough she could feel the heat. 4 months, he murmured, and there was something in his voice not suspicion, but pain, like the words cut him. Sir? Rask approached. Is something wrong? He stood abruptly. Process her when she wakes. Carefully. He was already walking away when he added, have the medic do a full blood work panel. Check for any anomalies. Anomalies, sir? Just do it. Senna lay still for another 10 minutes before waking, groggy, and confused. The concerned citizens helped her sit up, the medic gave her water, and she submitted to the blood draw with beta-mild compliance. But she felt Kairos watching from across the square, never looking directly at her but always aware. Like gravity, she could feel his attention pulling at her, making her child restless. The blood would show she was pregnant. It would show beta markers from her suppressants and disguise. But it would also show something else if they looked closely enough, alpha markers in the child's DNA. His markers, though he couldn't know that yet. She had maybe a day before those results came back. Less if they rushed them. She needed to run, but the medic insisted she rest, and Kairos had positioned guards to ensure she did. The trap was closing, and she was running out of moves. The medical tent smelled of carbolic acid and fear sweat. Senna sat on the edge of a cot while the camp medic, a nervous beta named Hollis, rechecked her blood sample for the 3rd time. Outside, she could hear the processing continuing, but inside the tent, something was wrong. I don't understand, Hollis muttered, comparing vials. This can't be right. Is my baby okay? Senna asked, playing the worried beta mother. The child is healthy, very healthy, but these markers. He held up a test strip to the lamplight. Have you been taking any unusual supplements? Herbs, perhaps? Before she could answer, the tent flap opened. General Draven ducked inside, having to lower his head to fit through the entrance. The space immediately felt smaller, the air thicker. Report, he commanded Hollis, who nearly dropped the samples. Sir, The blood work shows anomalies. The mother presents as beta, but the child's markers are. He swallowed hard. Alpha. Strong alpha. Kairos went perfectly still. That's impossible. Beta women can't carry alpha children. The pregnancy would self-terminate by the second month. That's what I thought, sir. But I've run the test 3 times. The child is undeniably alpha. And there's more the paternal markers are. Hollis trailed off, face paling as he looked at the test results again. Are what? Kairos's voice could have frozen flame. Unique, sir. I've never seen this particular marker combination. It would require comparison to our military database to find a match. The general's jaw clenched. Do it. Sir, that requires authorization. Do it. Hollis scrambled to comply, pulling out a military communication device. Senna forced herself to breathe normally, but inside she was screaming. The moment they ran that comparison, they'd know. The father of her child was standing 3 feet away. This is interesting, Kairos said, moving closer to where she sat. A beta woman carrying an alpha child. You must have quite a story. I don't understand what's happening, Senna whispered, not having to fake the tremor in her voice. The father was a traveling merchant. He said he was beta. Did he? Kairos circled her slowly. And where's this merchant now? Gone. He left when I told him about. She gestured to her stomach. Convenient. He stopped directly in front of her. Look at me. She raised her eyes slowly, meeting his gaze while keeping her expression carefully blank. This close, she could see the exhaustion carved into his features, the shadows under his eyes. Have we met before? He asked suddenly. No, my lord. I would remember meeting the general. Would you? His hand reached out, fingers hovering near her face but not touching. There's something familiar about. The device in Hollis's hand beeped. The medic's face went white as parchment as he read the results. His mouth opened and closed soundlessly, eyes darting between Senna and the general. Well? Kairos demanded, not looking away from her. Sir, there must be a mistake. The system says the paternal match is. The tent flap burst open. Rask entered, breathing hard. General, we've found her. The rogue Omega. A merchant spotted her heading north, exactly where you predicted. If we ride now? When? Kairos interrupted. An hour ago, fresh trail. But sir, we need to move immediately. For a moment, Kairos didn't move, still staring at Senna like she was a puzzle missing pieces. Then he turned sharply to Hollis. Complete your analysis. I want a full report when I return. To Rask. Prepare my horse. He was at the tent entrance when he paused, looking back. The beta woman doesn't leave this camp until I return. Post guards if necessary. For her protection, he added with dark irony. Then he was gone, the tent feeling suddenly empty without his presence. Hollis stared at the test results in his shaking hands, then at Senna. This says, he whispered. It's wrong, Senna said quickly. Your test is wrong. These tests don't lie. The child you carry. Its father is General Draven. That's impossible. I've never met him before today. Hollis looked at her. Really looked at her. You're sent. It's not quite beta, is it? And these results? No beta could carry the general's child. You're... Please, she breathed, letting her facade crack just enough. Please, you don't understand what he'll do if he finds out. You're the Omega he's hunting. It wasn't a question. Outside, horses thundered past. Kairos and his ghost wolves riding north, chasing shadows while the real prey sat in their medical tent. Senna watched Hollis struggle with the truth, saw the moment he made his decision. I'm going to destroy these test results, he said quietly. And you're going to disappear. Now. Before he realizes what I already know, that he's been chasing himself in circles, hunting for a woman he's already caught and lost. Why would you help me? Because I had a sister once. An Omega. She died in a breeding facility trying to carry an alpha child her body couldn't support. He handed her a medical pass. This will get you through the checkpoints. Go south, not north. And whatever you do, don't stop running. Senna took the pass, but as she stood, a wave of dizziness hit her. Her vision blurred, and she tasted copper. When she looked down, blood spotted her skirt. No, she gasped. Not now. Hollis caught her as she swayed. You're hemorrhaging. The stress. Lie down. Now. As he worked to save her pregnancy, Senna could hear horses in the distance, getting farther away. Kairos chasing ghosts while his heir fought to survive in a medical tent. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so terrifying. Because when he returned and found her gone or worse, found her still here with the truth written in blood, there would be no more running. No more hiding. The game would be over. Senna woke to darkness and the sound of rain against canvas. The medical tent was empty except for a single candle and a figure sitting in the shadows by the entrance. She knew who it was before he spoke. His presence filled the space like smoke. Hollis destroyed the test results, Kairos said quietly. Before my soldiers executed him for treason. Ice flooded her veins. You killed him? I killed a man who thought he could hide the truth from me. He stood, moving into the candlelight. His clothes were soaked, mud splattered from hard riding. The northern trail was false. You knew that, didn't you? She tried to sit up, but her body was weak from blood loss. The pregnancy had survived, barely, but the effort had cost her. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't. His voice carried exhausted rage. I've spent 4 months chasing a ghost, and now I find her bleeding in my medical tent, carrying. He stopped, jaw clenching. Hollis thought he destroyed everything, but he forgot the backup samples. I ran them myself. The pretense was pointless now. Senna let her beta mask drop completely, her true Omega nature flooding the tent with pheromones that made the candle flame flicker. Kairos's pupils dilated to black, his hands clenching into fists. There you are, he breathed. The Omega from the sanctuary. The one who burned the records. The one who... He stopped again, this time his voice catching. The one I claimed during your heat. You don't remember, she said. Not a question but confirmation of what she'd always suspected. That night was nothing to you. Just another Omega process during a raid. Remember? He laughed, dark and hollow. I remember everything. Your scent like lightning and rain. The way you fought even in heat. How you said you'd rather burn than submit. And then... He ran his hand through his wet hair. Then you kissed me, and I lost my mind. You left me in a tent with processing papers. I left you in a medical tent with escape routes and no guards. His gray eyes blazed. Did you think it was coincidence that the transport was delayed? That the guards were repositioned? I gave you every chance to run. The truth hit her like cold water. You? Let me escape? I let you escape. He moved closer, each step deliberate, and then spent 4 months hunting you because I couldn't let anyone else find you first. Do you know what the Continental Council does to Omegas, who seduce generals and steal military intelligence? I didn't steal. The sanctuary records contained safe house locations, supply routes, underground networks, information that disappeared when you burned those files. Information that died in your head. He was close enough now that she could feel his body heat. They wanted you dead. I convinced them you were more valuable alive. So you hunted me to save me? She laughed bitterly. How noble. I hunted you because I couldn't stop. The admission seemed torn from him. Your scent has been driving me insane. I haven't slept properly in 4 months. My wolf wants, demands. He stopped himself, stepping back. And now I know why. You're carrying my heir. Your heir? Rage gave her strength to stand, though she swayed. This is my child, mine. You were just a mistake, a desperate moment, that... She didn't see him move. One moment he was feet away, the next she was pressed against the tent's support pole, his hands braced on either side of her head, not touching, but caging. A mistake? His voice was velvet-wrapped thunder. Is that what you tell yourself? That what happened between us was just survival instinct? Yes. But the word came out breathless, unconvincing. Liar. He leaned closer, his lips near her ear. Your scent gives you away. Even now, weak from blood loss, your Omega instincts recognize me, the father of your child, your mate. We're not mated. There was no bond, no mark. Wasn't there? He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. Tell me you don't dream of that night. Tell me you don't wake up reaching for someone who isn't there. Tell me your Omega doesn't cry for an alpha she can't have. She wanted to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. Because he was right. Every night for 4 months, she dreamed of iron gray eyes and promises whispered in the dark. Why? She asked instead. Why claim me that night if you were just going to let me go? Because my wolf recognized you. The admission seemed to pain him. In all the chaos, the smoke, the violence, it found you and decided you were ours. I've been fighting it ever since. Fighting it? He laughed, hollow and tired. I'm the Alpha General of 3 territories. You're a rogue Omega who should be in a breeding facility. The Continental Council would have us both executed if they knew the truth. That their greatest military commander let his mate escape with classified information growing in her belly. Then let me go again, she whispered. Pretend you never found me. I can't. His hand moved to hover over her stomach, still not touching. Not now that I know. The child you carry, our child. It changes everything. It changes nothing. You're still the general who destroyed my sanctuary. I'm still the Omega who ran. Your sanctuary was harboring resistance fighters. The council had proof. Resistance fighters? She pushed against his chest, but he didn't budge. We were healers, teachers, caregivers. You were also hiding Lieutenant Colonel Anya Volkov, the wolf breaker. She killed 40 Alpha soldiers before disappearing into your sanctuary 3 weeks before the raid. Senna's breath caught. Anya's sweet, traumatized Anya, who helped in the kitchens and cried in her sleep. She was healing, trying to forget. She was planning another strike. We found the weapons, the maps. His expression softened slightly. I tried to make the raid as bloodless as possible. Why do you think I led it personally instead of sending my bloodhounds? The truth was rewriting history in her mind. You came to limit the damage. I came because our intelligence said one Omega at the sanctuary was different. Unregistered, but powerful. Dangerous. He finally touched her, fingers ghosting along her jaw. They were right. You are dangerous. To everything I've built, everything I am. Then why not end it now? Kill me and the child. Protect yourself. His eyes flashed alpha red. Anyone who tries to harm you or our child will die by my hands. That includes the Continental Council, my own soldiers, and any Omega who thinks you're weak prey. You can't protect us. Not from what's coming. Watch me. Before she could respond, horns sounded outside. Alert horns. Kairos pulled away, immediately shifting into military mode. Rask burst in. Sir, Continental Council forces. They're surrounding the camp. On whose authority? High Commander Thrail. He says you're harboring a fugitive. He has a warrant for the rogue Omega and... Rask's eyes flicked to Senna. Any offspring she might carry. Kairos's expression turned lethal. Hollis didn't just destroy those records. He sent them to someone first. Sir, what do we do? The general looked at Senna, and she saw him make a decision that would reshape everything. We tell them the truth, he said. Part of it, anyway. High Commander Thrail was everything Kairos wasn't blonde, where he was dark, lean where he was broad, political where he was military. He entered the command tent with an honor guard of 12 alphas, each wearing the council's golden chains of authority. Kairos. Thrail smiled, all teeth and no warmth. You've led us quite a chase. I wasn't aware I was running, Kairos replied, standing between Thrail and where Senna sat, now dressed in medical robes that hid her scent and condition. No? 4 months of failed hunting missions? Resource allocation that makes no sense? And now we find you've captured the rogue but haven't reported it. Thrail's pale eyes fixed on Senna. She matches the description perfectly. She's not the rogue you're looking for. No? Thrail pulled out a device, projecting holographic images. Security footage from the sanctuary, partially recovered. A young woman, early 20s, burning archives. The same woman seen fleeing into the night. The same woman who, witnesses say, seduced the commanding general during the raid. The last image froze Senna's blood, a blurry but unmistakable figure of her in Kairos's arms, both clearly affected by her heat, neither fighting the pull. Interesting footage, Kairos said calmly. Doctored, obviously. Is it? Thrail circled them slowly. Then you won't mind if we test the woman. Simple blood work to confirm she's not the Omega we're seeking. She's already been tested. She's beta. By a medic who's now dead. Convenient. Thrail nodded to his guards. Take her. No. Kairos's alpha command rippled through the tent, making even Thrail's guards hesitate. She's under my protection. Your protection? Thrail laughed. Since when does the great General Draven protect random beta refugees? Unless. His eyes sharpened. She's not random at all, is she? The moment stretched taut. Senna could feel Kairos's energy shifting, darkness gathering around him like armor. She'd heard rumors of what he became on battlefields, why enemies called him the Shadow Wolf. 3 years ago, Kairos said quietly, Operation Blackwater. You gave the order to breach the neutral zones. 60 Omega children died in the crossfire. Thrail stiffened. That was sanctioned by the Council. 2 years ago, the Riverside Massacre. You had Omega sympathizers burned alive in their homes, families, elderly, children. Necessary casualties to maintain. Last year. Kairos's voice dropped to something inhuman. You personally oversaw the forced breeding program that killed 300 Omegas who couldn't carry alpha children. My sister among them. Senna's breath caught. His sister, an Omega. Your sister was weak, Thrail said coldly. If she'd submitted properly, Kairos moved. Not like a man, but like shadow given form. One moment he stood still, the next Thrail was against the tent wall, Kairos's hand around his throat. The honor guard drew weapons but didn't fire. Couldn't fire as darkness literally seeped from their general's skin, making the lights flicker. My sister, Kairos growled, and his voice held echoes of something ancient, was 17. She died, screaming, trying to birth a child her body couldn't support because you classified her as premium breeding stock. You're not possible, Thrail gasped. The Shadow Wolves are myth. My bloodline carries many myths. Kairos's form rippled, becoming something between man and monster. We were kings before the Council existed. We bent knee to keep peace, but that courtesy ends now. He released Thrail, who collapsed gasping. Here's what happens next. You leave. Report that the rogue Omega died in the northern mountains. Close the file. The Council will never... The Council will accept it because the alternative is war. Kairos pulled out a device, activating it. Military communications flooded the space reports from every territory under his command. 3 territories, Commander. 40,000 soldiers who are loyal to me, not the Council. How many would the Council lose to take me down? Half their forces? More? You're threatening revolution over 1 Omega? I'm promising revolution if you touch what's mine. Thrail stood slowly, his face calculating. She's carrying something, isn't she? That's why you're protecting her. Leave. Now. The blood sample Hollis sent us was incomplete, but interesting. Alpha markers in a beta woman's child. Impossible unless. Thrail's eyes widened. She's not beta, and the child. Choose your next words very carefully, Kairos warned. Thrail looked between them, understanding dawning. You claimed her. The rogue Omega. You claimed her during the raid and now she carries your heir. Speculation without proof means nothing. Unless I order my men to take her anyway. Test her properly. Try. The single word held death's promise. The tent fell silent, except for rain against canvas. Senna watched these 2 alphas, one her hunter-protector mate, the other representing everything that would see her kind enslaved or dead. You know what this means, Thrail said finally. If the truth comes out, you'll be executed for treason. Your territories will burn. Your legacy will be ash. And you'll be dead long before that happens. Kairos smiled, all teeth. I know where you sleep, Thrail. Where your family sleeps. My shadows have been watching for years, waiting for an excuse. You wouldn't. I eliminated my own father when he tried to sell me. To the Council's politics. What makes you think I'd hesitate with you? The confession hung in the air. Senna stared at Kairos, seeing him truly for the first time. Not just the Alpha General, but something older, darker, a bloodline that predated civilization's rules. Thrail backed toward the exit, his guards forming around him. This isn't over. Yes, Kairos said softly. It is. After they left, the tent fell silent. Senna watched shadows still seeping from Kairos's skin, pooling around his feet like liquid night. Your sister was Omega, she said quietly. Half-sister. Same father. Different mothers. He wouldn't look at her. I couldn't save her. The council took her when she presented, put her in their program. I was already general, but it meant nothing. They bred her to death, trying to prove Omegas could carry alpha children safely. That's why you really came to the sanctuary. You were looking for proof the program was killing them. I found you instead. He finally met her eyes and repeated my father's sin, claiming an Omega in a moment of weakness. I'm not weak. No, he agreed. You're not, which is why this child might survive where others haven't. You're something different, Senna. Your Omega nature is old, like my shadow wolf, pre-war bloodlines. How do you know my name? You whispered it that night when you thought I was sleeping. He moved closer, shadows following, just like I whispered mine. Kairos, she said, tasting it properly for the first time. We're bound, you and I. By blood, by child, by whatever happened that night when old magic recognized itself. He touched her stomach finally, and where his hand rested, shadows and light swirled. This child will be neither purely alpha nor omega. It will be something new. Something the council fears. What do we do? Now? He smiled, dark and dangerous. Now we prepare for war. Because Thrail won't stay quiet. And when the council comes, they'll come with everything. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains like drums of war. Inside, an Omega and her shadow wolf general began planning a revolution that would start with a child who shouldn't exist. The attack came at dawn, but not from where they expected. Senna woke to Kairos, shouting orders, his shadow form already manifesting as he armed himself. The camp exploded into controlled chaos, soldiers running to positions, weapons being distributed, defensive formations spreading like water. Stay here, he commanded, but she was already reaching for the knife he'd given her. What's happening? Rogues. A full pack, moving with military precision. He paused at the tent entrance. This isn't random. Someone's coordinating them. Before she could respond, he was gone. Senna heard the fighting begin, screams, gunfire, the sound of bodies colliding, but something felt wrong. Rogues didn't attack military camps. They survived by avoiding confrontation. A scent hit her then, one that made her Omega instincts scream in recognition and terror, leather and copper and madness. She knew that scent, though she hadn't smelled it in 3 years. Hello, little sister. Victor stood in the tent entrance, still beautiful in that broken way that made Omegas follow him to their deaths. Her brother, but not. He'd been Omega once, before the experiments, before he'd volunteered for the Council's enhancement program. Now he was something else, artificially elevated to alpha status, but wrong, unstable. You're dead, she whispered. The program killed you. The program transformed me. He entered the tent, and she could see the changes more clearly. Taller, broader, alpha pheromones pouring off him but tainted with chemical wrongness. Just like it's going to transform you. You're leading the rogues? Leading them? I'm saving them. Every Omega who refuses registration, everyone who runs from their fate, I give them purpose, direction. His smile was sharp. Imagine my surprise when I heard my baby sister had not only survived but caught the attention of the great General Draven. She backed away, but there was nowhere to go. Victor, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You spread your legs for the enemy, and now carry his bastard. His artificially enhanced alpha presence pressed against her, making her Omega nature want to submit even as her mind rebelled. The Council will pay handsomely for you both. You're working with the Council, after what they did to you? I'm working with specific members who appreciate my unique position. He pulled out a device, showing her a contract with Thrail's seal. You and the child for my pack's immunity. Fair trade. Kairos will kill you. The famous Shadow Wolf? He's busy with my distractions. Victor gestured outside where the fighting continued. Amazing how many rogues will charge into death when you promise them revenge against their oppressors. You're using them as cannon fodder. I'm using them as tools. Just like the Council used me. Just like that Alpha used you. He moved closer, and she could smell the chemical enhancers on his breath. But don't worry. Where you're going, you'll be treated like the valuable breeding stock you are. Thrail has special plans for the Shadow Wolf's heir. No. No? He laughed. You're an unmarked, unbonded Omega, carrying an illegal pregnancy. You have no rights, no protection, no. The tent wall exploded inward. Kairos burst through in full shadow, wolf form not quite man, not quite beast, but living darkness with burning gray eyes. He assessed the situation in a heartbeat, then moved. Victor, chemically enhanced or not, was still artificial alpha. Kairos was something primordial. The fight was over before it began. Shadows wrapped around Victor's throat, lifting him off the ground. You're the brother, Kairos growled, his voice inhuman. The one who supposedly died in the program. General Draven. Victor gasped. An honor to finally... You're working with Thrail. A mutually beneficial arrangement. Kairos squeezed, cutting off words. But Senna moved, placing her hand on his shadow-wrapped arm. Don't, please. He came here to take you, to take our child. He's still my brother. What's left of him. She looked at Victor, seeing past the chemical changes to the boy who'd taught her to hide her Omega scent, who'd held her through her first heat, who'd volunteered for the program to protect her from it. The enhancement broke his mind. It's not his fault. Senna. Victor wheezed. Still so weak. So Omega. Yes, she agreed. And you're still so broken, so lost. Kairos lowered him, but didn't release the shadows. He knows too much. Knows you're here, knows about the child. Then we use that. Senna felt something shift in her, some Omega intuition becoming strategy. Victor, you want immunity for your pack? Already arranged. With Thrail, who'll betray you the moment he has what he wants. She circled him slowly. But what if you had something better? Protection from the Shadow Wolf himself. A territory where enhanced Omegas could exist without persecution. You're not in a position to bargain. No, but he is. She looked at Kairos. The enhanced Omegas are victims, not villains. Products of the Council's experiments. What if instead of enemies, they became allies? Kairos's shadow form rippled. You're suggesting I harbor artificial alphas? I'm suggesting you build an army the Council doesn't expect. She turned back to Victor. How many enhanced are there? 47 survived the program. 47 Omegas with alpha strength. But Omega intuition. Immune to alpha commands. Able to sense both designations. She saw Kairos understanding. Perfect spies. Perfect soldiers for a different kind of war. They're unstable, Kairos said. The chemicals can be managed. I'm a healer, remember? My grandmother's knowledge included ways to balance artificial enhancements. She touched Victor's face, feeling him flinch. I couldn't save you before, brother. Let me try now. Victor looked between them, confusion breaking through chemical rage. You'd trust me, after this? I'd trust the brother who once existed, who might still exist under all that poison. Thrail will come for you anyway. Let him come, Kairos said, shadows deepening. But he'll face not just my forces, but yours. Enhanced Omegas fighting alongside shadow wolves. The Council's worst nightmare. Outside, the fighting had stopped. Rask entered, blood splattered, but whole. Sir, we've captured 20 rogues. Orders? Kairos looked at Senna, then at Victor. A decision made in heartbeats that would change everything. Medical treatment for the wounded. Food and shelter for all. He released Victor completely. And send word to the territories. Any enhanced Omega-seeking sanctuary will find it here. Sir, Rask's confusion was evident. The rules are changing, Captain. We're going to need every advantage for what's coming. Victor stared at them. The chemical rage fading to something almost like hope. You'd really do this? Harbor the Council's failed experiments? I'd harbor family, Senna said quietly. All forms of it. And I'd build an army of the abandoned, Kairos added. Those the Council threw away after breaking them. Victor laughed, hollow but real. Thrail will lose his mind. Good. Kairos's smile was all teeth. Let him come for what's mine. He'll find more than he bargained for. As dawn broke fully, the camp transformed. Rogues became refugees. Enhanced Omegas emerged from hiding. And at the center, an unmarked Omega and her Shadow Wolf general prepared for a war that would redefine what it meant to be Alpha, Omega, or anything in between. The child in Senna's womb moved, as if sensing the shifting world it would be born into. Not a world of rigid hierarchies, but one where broken things could be remade stronger. The War Council convened in Shadow's Rest, Kairos' ancestral stronghold, carved into the mountain itself. Around the massive stone table sat an impossible alliance, traditional alphas, enhanced omegas, rogues, and even a few betas who'd chosen sides. Thrail masses forces at the border, Rask reported, projecting tactical displays. 15,000 council troops, including their elite guard. Plus their new weapons, Victor added, still pale from detox but clearer-eyed than he'd been in years. Pheromone bombs that can force any designation into submission. They tested them on my pack. Senna stood, despite Kairos wanting her seated, her pregnancy now obvious at 6 months. The child was growing faster than normal. Another sign of its unique nature. "We have 3,000, she said quietly. "Even with the enhanced Omegas, we're outnumbered 5 to 1. "Numbers mean nothing in mountain warfare," Kairos countered. "These passes have drunk the blood of larger armies. But never armies with this." Victor produced a vial of clear liquid. Synthetic alpha pheromones, concentrated. One drop can make even alphas submit. The room erupted in arguments, strategies, fears. Senna felt the child respond to the tension, moving restlessly. Then she felt something else, a presence like ice water in her veins. "He's here," she gasped. The stronghold's ancient bells began tolling. Enemy at the gates, but not an army, a single figure approaching under a white flag. Thrail had come to parley. They met him in the courtyard, Kairos in full Shadow Wolf form, Senna beside him despite protests. Victor flanked her other side, a strange reversal of their childhood when he'd protected her from alphas. Thrail wasn't alone. Beside him stood a figure in white robes, a council sage, one of the 3 who ruled above even the high commanders. "Sage Meridia," Kairos said carefully. "This escalates beyond military action. General Draven." Her voice was ancient, neutral. "Or should I say, Lord of Shadows? You've reclaimed your ancestral title, I see. Among other things." Meridia's blind eyes somehow found Senna. "And this is the Omega causing such discord. Pregnant, unmarked, yet standing as equal. How? Novel." "State your terms," Kairos growled. "Simple." Thrail smiled. "The Omega and child come with us. Your forces disperse. You maintain your territories but under council supervision." "Counter offer," Senna said, surprising everyone. "The council recognizes enhanced Omegas as a legitimate designation. Full rights, protection, medical support to manage their conditions." "Impossible." Thrail spat. "Is it?" Sage Meridia tilted her head. "The enhancement program was our failure. Perhaps acknowledgement is overdue. They're abominations. Their evolution." Senna stepped forward, and the child's energy pulsed outward, making everyone except Kairos step back. Just like this child, neither purely alpha nor omega, but something new. "The rigid hierarchies are breaking, Sage. You can guide the change or be swept away by it." "You dare threaten," Thrail began. The sky darkened. Not clouds, but shadows spreading from Kairos like wings. His ancestral power unleashed without restraint, turning day to twilight. "I am the last true-blood Shadow Wolf," his voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "My line predates your council by 1,000 years. We knelt to keep peace, but that covenant is broken." "Then you choose war," Thrail said. "I choose change." Kairos's form solidified, still monstrous, but controlled. "Your synthetic weapons, your enhancement programs, your breeding facilities, they're all attempts to control evolution. But evolution doesn't ask permission." Sage Meridia was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Show me the child." "What?" Thrail turned on her. "The pregnancy that shouldn't exist. The child of shadow and storm." She approached Senna slowly. "May I?" Senna looked at Kairos, who nodded slightly. The sage placed one withered hand on her stomach. The moment she made contact, the world exploded with sensation. Power raced through Senna, not violent but vast. She saw divided by felt, divided by knew the child's nature. Not just alpha or omega, but something that could be either, neither, both. A being of choice rather than designation. But more than that, she felt others. Dozens, hundreds of similar signatures across the territories. Children born in the last decade carrying traces of the same evolution. The enhanced omegas were just the beginning. Sage Meridia gasped, pulling her hand back. The convergence, it's not coming, it's here, has been building for a generation. Sage? Thrail's voice held fear. The old prophecies spoke of this. When the bloodlines would merge, when designation would become choice rather than destiny. She looked at Kairos. Your shadow wolves were the first, beings who could choose their form. Now that trait spreads. That's not possible. Look around you, Commander. Enhanced omegas with alpha strength. A shadow wolf general who can resist all commands. An unmarked omega carrying an impossible child. Meridia smiled, and it was terrible. The age of rigid hierarchy ends. The question is whether we guide the transition or die fighting it. The Council will never accept. The Council will adapt or fall. Meridia turned to leave, then paused. You have 1 month, General Draven. Use it wisely. When I return, I'll expect a proposal for integration, not war. And if Thrail attacks anyway? She looked at the High Commander with those blind eyes that saw everything. Then he does so without Council sanction, and all consequences are his alone. After they left, the courtyard remained silent. The implications were staggering. Not just a reprieve, but possibility. She's giving us a chance, Senna breathed. She's giving us rope to hang ourselves, Victor corrected. The Council doesn't change. It consumes. Then we make sure we're too strong to swallow, Kairos said. He pulled Senna against him, and she felt their child respond to its father's presence. 1 month to build something new. An integration proposal, Rask mused. Enhanced omegas, shadow wolves, traditional designations, all recognized equally? More than that, Senna said, understanding flooding through her. A new system entirely, where designation is fluid, where people can choose, where biology doesn't determine destiny. The traditionalists will revolt. Let them. Kairos's eyes blazed. We have something they don't, the next generation. Every child born with mixed traits, every enhanced omega who survived, every beta who's tired of being overlooked. We're not the revolution, we're the evolution. As night fell over Shadow's Rest, plans began forming. Not for war, but for transformation. The child in Senna's womb kicked strongly, as if approving. 1 month to change the world. It would have to be enough. 3 weeks into their month of grace, everything shattered. Senna woke to pain, not labor, but something wrong. The child, usually so active, had gone still. Kairos was beside her instantly, Shadows writhing with his panic. Get the healers, he commanded, but she grabbed his hand. No, get Victor. Victor? He's not. He knows the enhancement compounds, the child. Something's wrong with its hybrid nature. Within minutes, her brother was there, along with the Stronghold's best healers. Victor's hands glowed faintly as he examined her, a side effect of his enhancement that he'd learned to control. The child's nature is splitting, he said grimly, trying to be both alpha and omega simultaneously. It's tearing itself apart. How do we stop it? We can't, but we might be able to choose. Choose? Force it to one designation or the other, make it fully alpha or fully omega, end the hybrid state. Senna felt Kairos's horror matching her own. That defeats everything we're fighting for. It saves the child's life. By making it exactly what the old world demands? She struggled to sit up. No, there has to be another way. There is, a new voice said from the doorway. Sage Meridia entered, uninvited and unexpected, but you won't like it. How did you? I've been monitoring the child since our meeting. Its energy signature is unique. She approached the bed. It's not trying to be both designations. It's trying to be something beyond designation entirely. That's impossible. So was your pregnancy, yet here we are. Meridia placed her hands on Senna's stomach. I can stabilize it, but the cost. Name it. The child will live, but it will never have a designation. No alpha strength, no omega intuition. It will be truly neutral, the first of its kind. A beta? No, betas still have designation, just weaker. This child will have none. It will exist outside the hierarchy entirely. Senna looked at Kairos. Their child, born to unite designations, would instead transcend them. But at what cost? It will be vulnerable, Kairos said quietly. No protective instincts, no pack bonds. No limitations, Meridia countered. No biological imperatives controlling its choices. True free will. The Council will see it as an abomination. The Council already does. Meridia's blind eyes somehow found Senna's. But Thrail moves without sanction. Even now, his forces mass for an illegal strike. He plans to take you before the month ends, use the child as a weapon. You're warning us? I'm offering you a choice. Let the child die as a hybrid, force it to a single designation, or let me make it something new, something that proves designation is not destiny. The pain spiked, and Senna felt the child's distress. They were running out of time. Everything they'd fought for came down to this moment. Would they save their child by making it fit the world, or change the world? By letting their child be different? Do it, she gasped. Senna, Kairos began. Our child will be free, truly free. Isn't that worth any risk? He kissed her forehead, shadows wrapping around them both. Together? Always. Meridia began working, ancient power flowing through her into the child. Senna felt the change immediately, not painful but profound. The child's signature shifted, became something indescribable. Neither, and both, and none, and all. But as the stabilization completed, alarms rang through the stronghold. Thrail, Victor announced, checking tactical displays. He's attacking now, during the procedure. He knew we'd be vulnerable. He couldn't have... Kairos stopped. Unless someone told him. Meridia stepped back, the procedure complete, but her expression grim. The Council has factions. Some want evolution, others want control. I chose evolution. And Thrail chose war. Then we give him one. Kairos's form began shifting to full shadow wolf. Rask, deploy everyone. Victor, get the enhanced omegas to the secondary positions. And Senna, I'm fighting. You just had a procedure. The child is stable. And I'm done hiding. She stood, wobbled, then steadied. The child's new nature pulsed through her calm, centered, utterly unique. This is our stand. The battle began at sunset. Thrail had brought everything: traditional forces, synthetic weapons, even other enhanced omegas loyal to the Council. The mountain pass became a killing ground. Kairos fought like the ancient shadow wolves of legend, darkness itself given form and fury. Victor led his enhanced omegas in guerrilla strikes, using their dual nature to confuse and disorient. Rask held the main line with traditional forces, but they were still outnumbered, still losing ground. Then Senna felt it, the child's power reaching out, touching every mixed designation person on the battlefield. Not controlling, just connecting. Showing them what they could be. Choose, she whispered, and somehow her voice carried across the battle. Not what you were born, but what you'll become. The effect was instantaneous. Enhanced omegas on both sides stopped fighting, feeling the possibility of balance. Traditional soldiers felt their rigid training crack. Even Thrail's elite guard hesitated. What is this? Thrail roared, feeling his control slipping. Evolution, Meridia said simply. She'd remained in the stronghold, but her power extended outward. The child broadcasts its nature, shows them they don't have to be what they were designated. Impossible. Look around you, Commander. Your enhanced omegas are choosing their own path. Your soldiers are questioning orders. The rigid structure you defend is already crumbling. Thrail drew his weapon, aiming at Senna. Then I'll end it at the source. He fired. The bullet should have killed her. Instead, shadows erupted from 3 directions: Kairos, Victor, and surprisingly, several of Thrail's own enhanced omegas. They converged, deflecting the shot. You would protect the abomination? Thrail asked his own soldiers. We protect choice, one answered. The right to be more than what others decide. The battle stopped. Not ended, just stopped. Soldiers on both sides lowering weapons, feeling the possibility the child offered. Not war between designations, but unity beyond them. This is what we propose, Senna said into the silence. Not the destruction of the old way, but evolution into something better, where alphas can be gentle, omegas can be strong, and children like mine can simply be. The council will never accept. The council already has. Meridia stepped forward. I speak for the sages. This child, designation, null, is recognized as legitimate. The precedent is set. One child changes nothing. One child changes everything. Kairos's shadow form loomed over Thrail. Stand down, Commander, or face a united force unlike anything you've imagined. Thrail looked around at his fracturing army, at enhanced Omegas choosing new loyalty, at the inevitable change surrounding him. He dropped his weapon. The old world is dead, he said bitterly. No, Senna corrected, hand on her stomach where the impossible child grew. It's evolving, and so are we all. The birth came with the first snow of winter. Senna labored for 16 hours, while the stronghold held its breath. Outside, representatives from every territory waited, council observers, enhanced Omega leaders, traditional pack alphas, even beta collective speakers, all here to witness the impossible. Push, the midwife encouraged, but Senna barely heard her. The child's nature made everything different. No typical labor pheromones, no designation-based complications. Just pure, simple, agonizing humanity. Kairos hadn't left her side, his shadows cocooning them both. Victor stood guard at the door, chemically enhanced senses alert for any threat. The world might have accepted this child politically, but acceptance and safety were different things. I can see the head, the midwife announced. Once more, Lady Senna. She pushed, screaming, and felt the child leave her body in a rush of fluid and relief. Then, silence. Why isn't it crying? Kairos demanded. The midwife held the baby, confusion clear on her face. I don't understand. The child is healthy, breathing, but... Senna reached for her baby, and the moment it touched her skin, she understood. The child was perfectly calm. No distress, no designation hormones driving infant behavior. It simply existed. Gray eyes neither Kairos's iron nor her amber, but something between taking in the world with impossible awareness. Let me see. Sage Meridia entered, having waited for this moment. She examined the child carefully, then smiled. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. But it's not crying, not responding normally. Because it's not normal. This child exists outside biological imperatives. It doesn't cry because it doesn't feel the automatic distress other infants do. Watch. She pricked the baby's heel, a standard test. The child frowned slightly, pulled its foot away, but didn't cry. It processed the sensation without the overwhelming response designation would trigger. Is it broken? Victor asked quietly. It's free, Senna corrected, understanding flooding through her. Truly, completely free. The name? The midwife asked, preparing the official documentation. Senna looked at Kairos. They'd discussed this for weeks. Kai, she said. Neither masculine nor feminine, neither alpha nor omega. Simply Kai. As if responding to the name, the baby made its first sound not a cry, but something like a hum. Content, curious, utterly unique. The announcement of Kai's birth sent shockwaves through the territories. Within days, other pregnant couples came forward, requesting Meridia's procedure. They wanted designation null children, wanted the freedom Kai represented. It's spreading faster than we anticipated, Victor reported at the emergency council. His network of enhanced omegas had become an intelligence service, the younger generation especially. They're refusing designation testing, covering their scent glands, rejecting the hierarchy. Let them, Kairos said. He'd changed since Kai's birth, shadows lighter somehow. Change doesn't come from forcing it on others, but from them choosing it themselves. The traditionalists are organizing, Rask warned, calling it the end of natural order. The natural order that enslaved omegas and corrupted alphas? Senna entered, Kai sleeping against her chest in a carrier. Even asleep, the child's presence affected the room designation tensions, easing, hierarchical posturing diminishing. They're planning something, Victor insisted. My sources say a purge. Eliminate Kai and any other null children before they can grow up and spread their influence. Over my dead body, Kairos growled, shadows spiking. That might be their plan. Before anyone could respond, unexpected visitors arrived. 3 figures in ancient robes, not council sages, but something older. The keepers, whispered about but never seen, guardians of pre-hierarchy history. We've come for the child, the eldest said. Every weapon in the room pointed at them instantly. To harm Kai, Kairos began, to acknowledge Kai. The keeper removed her hood, revealing features that belonged to no clear designation. We are the last of the first people, before alphas, omegas, or betas, before biology became destiny. That's myth, Rask said. Is it? You hold the proof. She gestured to Kai. This child is not new evolution, but return to origin. We've waited centuries for this moment. She approached slowly, hands visible and empty. May I? Senna felt no threat from her, only ancient weariness and hope. She nodded. The keeper touched Kai's forehead gently. The child's gray eyes opened, meeting ancient ones with that impossible awareness. Hello, little Bridge, the keeper whispered. You who will unite what was divided. Bridge? Between the old world and new. Kai's children, and their children, will carry choice itself, not forced to one designation or another, but able to choose, to shift, to simply be. She looked at the assembled group, but only if Kai survives to adulthood. The traditionalists are gathering at Howling Pass, 8,000 strong, led by Alpha Supreme Marcus himself. The keeper's expression was grave. They come in 3 days, not to negotiate, but to exterminate. Then we fight, Kairos said simply. Or, the keeper said, you transform. She pulled out an ancient vial, liquid silver swirling inside. The original essence. What we were before the great division that created designations. 1 drop, and any person can become like Kai null, free. That's dangerous, yes. Many won't survive the transformation. But those who do. She smiled. Imagine an army that can't be commanded, can't be suppressed by pheromones, can't be controlled by biological imperatives. You're suggesting mass transformation? I'm suggesting evolution by choice. Let people decide remain as they are, or become something new. Senna looked at Kai, peaceful in sleep, unaware they were the catalyst for world change. Then she looked at those assembled: her mate, her brother, her found family. We offer the choice, she decided, to our people, to Thrale's former forces, even to the traditionalists coming to destroy us. Let them choose their nature rather than having it chosen for them. And if they choose to remain traditional? To fight? Kairos stood, shadows spreading like wings. Then they faced those of us who chose change, and learned that evolution doesn't ask permission. The keeper placed the vial on the table. 3 days to change an army. Will it be enough? It has to be, Senna said, feeling Kai stir. The baby hummed again, that unique sound that seemed to harmonize with something deeper than hearing. Around the stronghold, people began to gather. Enhanced omegas, traditional soldiers, civilians, all drawn by rumors of choice, of freedom from designation's chains. 3 days to build an army of the transformed. 3 days to defend the future. 3 days to prove that what they were born didn't determine what they could become. The transformation of the world began with a single child's hum, spreading like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. And at the center, Kai slept peacefully, unaware they were the stone that would reshape everything. 5 years later, the school was unlike anything the old world would have recognized. No separation by designation. No hierarchy based on biology. Children of all types learned together, played together, grew together. Senna stood watching through the window as Kai, now 5, mediated a dispute between 2 playmates, one a traditional alpha pup, the other an enhanced omega's child. Her child, neither and both, helped them find balance with that strange calm that had defined them since birth. Still think we made the right choice? Kairos asked, arms wrapping around her from behind. Look at them, she replied. When's the last time you saw alpha and omega children playing without dominance games? Since our null children started humming, he said with a smile. The hum. It had become Kai's signature, and the signature of the 1,000 null children born since. Not quite sound, not quite vibration, but something that reminded everyone nearby that designation was just one way of being, not the only way. "The council's arriving," Victor announced, entering the observation room. He looked healthier than he had in years, the enhancement balanced by Senna's treatments and his own choice to partially transform. Not fully null, but not traditionally enhanced either. Something uniquely his. "Let them come," Kairos said. "We have nothing to hide." The new Continental Council was different from the old. 3 sages, 3 alphas, 3 omegas, 3 betas, and 3 nulls. 15 voices representing all ways of being. Today's visit was their annual review of what the media had dubbed the Harmony Schools. Sage Meridia led them, older now, but with eyes that seemed less blind and more all-seeing. "Lord and Lady Draven." "Sage," Senna greeted. "Welcome to Haven." They'd renamed Shadow's Rest after the transformation. Haven, a place for all. "The statistics are impressive," Meridia noted, reviewing her tablet. 0 designation, based violence in 5 years. Academic performance up across all types, and the null children. 30% of parents now choose the procedure, Victor reported with pride. His intelligence network had become an information service, tracking the spread of change. Not forced, not pressured, chosen. And the traditionalists? Still exist, Kairos admitted. Alpha Supreme Marcus maintains his pure territories. But even there, children are questioning. The hum reaches everywhere. As if summoned, Kai appeared in the doorway. "Mama, Papa, we're doing presentations. Wanna watch?" The council followed them to the main hall where children had prepared projects about their chosen interests. No designation typical subjects, alpha children presenting on art, omega children on warfare, null children on everything in between. Kai's presentation was last. They stood calmly before the assembled crowd, gray eyes serene. "My project is about choice," they began, voice carrying that subtle harmonic that made everyone listen. "Not the choice to be null like me, but the choice to be yourself, whatever that means." They showed drawings made by their classmates, alphas who chose gentleness, omegas who chose strength, betas who chose to lead, nulls who chose everything and nothing. The old world said biology is destiny. The new world says destiny is choice. "But I think..." Kai paused, that impossible awareness flickering in their eyes. "I think we're all just people trying to be happy, and happiness doesn't have a designation." The room was silent. Then, slowly, the hum began. Not just from Kai or the other null children, but from everyone. That deep, harmonious vibration that transcended biology and touched something fundamentally human. "Remarkable," Meridia breathed. "In 5 years, you've changed everything." "We changed nothing," Senna corrected. "We just gave people permission to be themselves." Later, after the council departed with glowing reviews, the family gathered for dinner. An impossible family shadow, Wolf Alpha, Rogue Omega, Enhanced Brother, Null Child. Around them, hundreds of others like them, different from them, all choosing their own way. "Tell us the story," Kai asked, as they did every night. "About the Omega who hid and the Alpha who hunted." "You know this story," Senna laughed. "But I like how you tell it." So she began, as she always did. "They say Omegas in heat leave traces everywhere. But your mother learned to move like smoke through water." As she told the story, their story, Senna felt the truth of it settle into her bones. They'd begun as hunter and hunted, Alpha and Omega, everything the old world demanded they be. But they'd chosen to become something more. Outside, the world continued changing, not through force or law, but through children's laughter, through the hum that reminded everyone that what they were born didn't define what they could become. The revolution hadn't come through war, though they'd been ready to fight. It came through a child's hum, spreading like dawn across a dark world. It came through choice. And they lived, Senna concluded the story, looking at her impossible family, exactly as they chose to live. "Forever?" Kai asked. "For as long as they chose," Kairos said, kissing their child's forehead. The hum rose around them, from their child, from the other null children in nearby homes, from the world itself evolving one choice at a time. It sounded like hope. It sounded like freedom. It sounded like the future, arriving one heartbeat at a time. In the end, the Omega who hid for months carrying an Alpha's heir didn't just survive, She transformed an entire world, not through the child she carried, but through the choice that child represented, that biology was not destiny, that love transcended designation, and that sometimes the greatest revolutions came not from fighting what was, but from choosing what could be. The age of rigid hierarchy ended not with a bang, but with a hum, and in its place rose something unprecedented: freedom.